Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you are well. Thank you for taking the time to attend the webinar today. Plant to Pedestrian Risk Management. It's time to focus on people. Some of you attendees will know, my name's Jonathan Reynolds, the Vice Chair of the East Anglia Branch. Just wanted to give a slight intro to Sam and Gary from Site Zone Safety. I've worked with them across a number of years with a number of clients based on their system. I shan't go into much more detail than they're offering, as they'll cover off a very good session today, which we've been looking forward to. Thanks again, once again, from me on taking the time out to attend this webinar. If you have any questions throughout, please just add them on there. We'll try and get round as many as we can towards the end of the session, and we'll have a closing address from Tony, who is the chairman of the East Anglia Branch Committee. Over to Gary and Sam. Welcome.
Thank you, Jonathan. Yes, just to reiterate, thanks everybody for taking the time to come and view the webinar, Plant to Pedestrian Risk Management. It's time to focus on the people. And really the key is the people, and that's as a business where we are focused on is how we reduce the risk for the people working on a variety of sites where mobile plant is used. So just a quick introduction to us as a business. So meet the founders. Obviously myself, I have a background in safety products, which goes back, well, I'd say it, but well in excess of 30 years, coming through gas detection, construction safety plant, mobile plant, and introducing new technologies, new safety technologies to the market. And Nigel Adams, our co-founder, he's been involved with designing systems for mobile plant safety, but not a dissimilar period of time. I think about 27 years Nigel's been involved. So that's the two of us. And we both have worked together previously at ProLab, who's a company some of you may know if you've been involved in mobile plant safety before. So just a bit of history. So we started the business in 2009. We had our first deployment of a tag-based proximity warning system, or pretty much any proximity warning system in the UK, in 2011 on the M25 upgrade, if any of you can remember that. Unfortunately, there was fatality on that project where somebody was killed by a bulldozer. And that's how we got involved in the early days. And as I say, we were the first tag-based proximity warning system deployment way back in 2011. And then we launched our own Site Zone brand, which is the brand you see today. I think we've learned a lot since we first started. We had, and as you'll see as we go through and explain the product, in this concept, you can put this invisible bubble around the machine, and if people breach it, we alert them and things like that. But I think the key is we've worked with our customers to evolve the system. And again, Jonathan's mentioned, worked with him previously with a number of clients. So the next big step for us was FCC Environment, who, depending on which industry you're from, some of you will have heard of them. So they started their rollout in 2013. They are still a very major customer for us 11 years later. And we have full deployment across all their sites now. So I think it's 207 vehicles across 60, 70 sites.
Yeah, we've got a case study at the end,
yeah.
So
yeah.
show you there.
So we'll show you that. And we've issued many thousands of tags and have many million of man-hours worked with them. As FCC helps a lot in the early days, we introduced what we call masking or limiting, which was specifically for sites with walkways. So we don't want to detect people on a segregated walkway, as in physical segregation, because they're at less risk of mobile plant. So really this is our trend of innovation, if you like. Again, bucket zone was something we introduced. So rather than just monitoring the footprint of the machine, we could monitor the working equipment, We're going to talk a lot about data today because that's really the key to a lot of what we do today is changing those behaviours. And we know that people don't do the right thing, but it's how can we reinforce that? So we launched a data platform in 2016. Again, we were the first people to do that for this type of product. So there's been a continuous stream of development, but in 2020 we launched Smart Bubble, which is a patent pending application specific product. When COVID hit, we launched a personal distancing system, which we were involved with helping out the NEC, Nightingale. It's busy. And then in 2021, we launched our own onboard weighing division. It's not quite sitting in the safety bracket, but it fits very well with our existing customer base. And we've launched a new Power BI data platform, so we've migrated everything over to Power BI now because that's what most of our larger customers are using for their own internal reporting and KPIs. And then the big thing was the launch of the RCV smart loader, so refuse collection vehicles, bin trucks. We launched that in collaboration with FCC in 2023. Any of you involved in the waste industry will know there was a very significant problem with RCVs and the lifts on the RCVs. There was a fatality in Coventry in January 2023. There was a lot of industry talk. If anybody is specifically interested in that, we'd be happy to talk to them outside of this because it's a very evolving picture. And in 2024, we launched a new weighing product for JCB tow trucks. So again, we continually evolve.
So I just want to go into a bit of why we do what we do, and why it's important. Just before I do, is there any questions, Jonathan, before we move on?
No questions at this stage, no, Sam.
Good. Right, so why do we do this? Unfortunately, the latest figures, this was 2022, 2023, so we should be getting an update soon, but the latest figures from the HSE showed that 20 workers didn't go home as a result of a collision with a moving vehicle. Now, this is a number that we want to reduce. We want to reduce that risk. Being struck by a moving vehicle consistently sits in the top 3 highest causes of fatalities at work. Falls from a height is always number 1, but struck by a moving vehicle flips between 2 and 3. So, it's something that a lot of businesses are focusing on, and it's an area that, we definitely need to reduce the risk. Just want to put up about the different industries. So this shows fatal injuries to workers. It's all not just plant pedestrian, but this is all fatal injuries. I think we know construction gets a lot of news. We do see that, it does stand out. It's a very high risk industry. And so you may see your sector there. This just shows you the sort of difference. But then when we flip it and we take this chart and we look at it in comparison with the number of people that work in that industry, it does change the picture somewhat. So agricultural, forestry, that was quite high and it still is, but waste and recycling, that comes up. So whereas the numbers were lower than some of the other industries, when you compare it to the number of people that work in that industry, it's actually quite a high figure, and it has been has increased from the last year. But then there's non-fatal injuries. You'll all know as safety professionals, there's a lot that we don't know about. Near-miss reporting, it's a tricky one to try and get people to report near misses. What is a near miss? Making sure they feel happy reporting them. We spoke to a council not so long ago who changed the way they report near missing, and they saw a massive increase. So it's just some of these little things we can change to try and find out. Once we know about it, we can do something about it.
Okay. So what can we do to reduce the risks? Just to reiterate on Sam's numbers there, if you look at the trend over the last few years, we did have a dip in the number of fatalities. It is going back up, and 2023, 2024 is not going to be a good picture, I don't think, from the information we have. So it's one of these things we have to keep working at. So how do we reduce the risk for our workers? You will all be far more familiar with this than I am. The hierarchy of controls as safety professionals. Elimination, substitution, engineering controls. than training and PPE. So as I say, you'll be far more familiar with that. And that's from our side, we want to see that our customers are doing that before they even really consider putting our product in, because you're not going to get the most effectiveness out of what we do unless you're already doing all those things. So I think there's certainly within the waste industry, but I would take this further. There's no secrets with safety. There shouldn't be. There's no copyright on safety, so we should all share best practice where we can, and we shouldn't be afraid to do that. We shouldn't be treating safety as a competitive advantage. So what can we do? We've done all those things. You've diligently followed your hierarchy of controls. Is there anything else you can do? So we can introduce an extra layer of control with proximity warning systems. As some of you be aware, depending on what industry you are in, there are a range of technologies out there, but basically a proximity warning system provides a warning of the risk of collision between a vehicle and a pedestrian. So that's what we're talking about here. We're not specifically talking vehicle to vehicle, we're talking about those pedestrians at risk. So how does SiteZone work? Is this a video? Yeah, we're going to show you a short video now.
How does it work? If you enter the exclusion zone of the machine, the driver is alerted. The external alarm will sound where fitted. Your tag will vibrate.
Sorry, okay. So I think the key message from this proximity warning system is that we're alerting everybody involved in that risk chain. The driver is getting a warning there's a pedestrian within his predefined exclusion zone. The pedestrian gets an individualised warning, so there is no doubt that it's them. And the external alarm is there to warn others that there is potentially an issue and somebody's at risk. So it's that total warning is the key with what we do, that we alert everybody, so there is no doubt action needs to be taken.
How does it work?
Then just a little bit about what makes us different. Hopefully you'll recognise some of these companies and might even have some people hear from them, but we're already trusted by more than 60 organisations and over 220 sites across the UK. And these range from smaller individual sites to larger companies that have got multi-sites where we manage across all their sites. It's a proven product. We've been doing this for quite a long time. We've had over 6,000 installations. There's more than 20,000 tags out in the field, and that equates to over 160 million hours work. So, like Gary said earlier, we've learned with our customers, and we've developed things for our customers to make sure that it fits their requirements. It's very simple. It's very easy to use. We like to keep it like that. The experience, this is something that we really, when we go to a site now, we can give them the advice that we've learnt from other sites, and we can help you, we can really make sure that you get the best out of this for you and your staff. So the tags that you saw in that video, we have what we call, they're non-rechargeable. So what it means is your battery, it has about a 3-year battery life, can be longer, can be less, but it means you don't have to, we all have to charge so many different devices in our own personal life. So with this, it means you don't have to keep taking them back off your staff, charging them, risk going out without a charged battery. So it makes it much easier for you to manage on site. It's very much a partnership. We like to work together. We like to understand your operations, your safe systems of work. How can we help? We talk about things like standardized exclusion zones. We help our customers. Sometimes they have a defined exclusion zone, sometimes they don't. So that's what we can help for you to develop, so that everyone knows what the exclusion zone around a vehicle should be. This is a biggie, and we'll show you how with the case study towards the end. But the behavioural change, really, ultimately what we want is people to be working much safer and understand the risks on site, and that's where we're getting to with the data that we can get from our system. And finally, as safety professionals, you'll really understand this, but we give you a digital safety record every time we come. And I think this is really important, because there are people that kind of have self-installed products, things that they do themselves. And if you don't have that paper chain and that trail of everything that's been done to the system, it just keeps it buttoned tight, so you know what's going on, and we've always got that paper trail.
So your challenges, and they will vary across whichever industry you're currently working in, but I think some of them are common for everybody, and how we can help, or both the product and how we can help solve those challenges, at least meet those challenges head on. So I think firstly is diverse working environments. I mean, we've got 4 environments there. One is clearly an MRF, the top right, and you can instantly see there we've got lots of blind corners, we've got lots of open space. You know, it's a challenge. You know, for example, that telly truck I think is in the bells there. That could have a camera on, but if it's got a reversing camera on, how is it going to detect anybody that's not within his line of sight? You could quite easily have somebody emerging from behind one of the stacks. So again, it's these working environments that are the challenge. You've got environmental factors, dust. There's a whole range of things that are going to impact your plant pedestrian safety. A lot of sites have visiting oncoming contractors. You make them aware of the risks and things like that. Site layouts and size is a big one. I mean, I don't know how many transfer stations I've visited over my time, but I've never been to 2 that are the same. So that's a challenge for us in how we deploy, but again, that's where experience comes in and we can help you. Do sites already have segregation? What sort of segregation do they have? Is it physical segregation? Is it an area where we can provide limiting to reduce people being detected when they're in a safe area? Noise levels is obviously a big one. Traffic management. Traffic management plans are key to plant pedestrian safety on sites where you have whole roads and things like that. And again, what safe working practices you have? We know within the waste industry, for example, it's generally regarded that a 5-metre exclusion zone around any piece of working mobile plant is adequate. Construction has things like red zones, which makes it slightly different. So again, we come across a lot of different safe working practices, depending on the application, the industry, and the site.
So the very nature of a lot of environments is that you do have people and vehicles working close together. You know, you'll have in a factory, you'll have forklifts moving goods around, but you'll also have people who are packing. You know, all industries, you have people and vehicles working together. So it's how we manage that and how we make sure that the people are aware, but also that we can put in a secondary, you know, level of security to help forewarn people, like I was saying, people coming out from a blind spot or somewhere where into and out of a building where they might not see someone crossing. So we know that it's environments you're going to have people working. You can do as much as you can with, as we said, the hierarchy of control. This is just that next level of security.
Yeah, okay. So, and again, these are photos from sites where we've operated, have things like obstructions on site, detecting people, and we've got a scenario there that's actually our engineer's van. He's been put in a safe place to work on the whatever vehicle he's working on. But clearly you can have a vehicle approach. And one of the beauties of our product is it doesn't rely on line of sight. You don't have to physically see the tag to be able to get an alert. So in those scenarios where you have obstructions, and again, we've got a wood waste site there, again, you can see the obstructions and the visibility issues you have on that site, and they are increasing your risk. So we need to de-risk that. Site layouts are getting better. I think people are more conscious of this as we go forward. Again, in the warehouse, different set of challenges with different obstructions. Warehouse, and again, that's actually a picture I took on a site of that loading shop reversing. I had no idea it was coming out until I saw it, basically. It was a few years old, that picture. Yeah, so we have challenges on site, certainly with line of sight for pedestrians.
No, I briefly touched on this earlier, near misreporting, and I've heard a line before where it's, you know, don't learn safety by accident, and you know, the industries like the airline industry, they are very good at this. They will any tiny issue they have, they make sure they look into it and they resolve it, and people aren't afraid to report. So you know, tip of the iceberg, we think of, you know, the fatalities published by the HSE. But underneath this, we've got the near misses. And you'll see when we look at our data platform as we go through, what we can start to see is every time someone gets too close to a moving vehicle and they breach that zone that we've created around the vehicle, technically it's a near miss. That is a near miss because there could have been an incident. So it's A, how do we encourage it, and B, then how do we use that data to make real differences? So segregated walkways. Obviously, I imagine some of the sites you look after, you will have some of these. That's one of the areas on the hierarchy controls we try and do first, segregated walkways. However, this then does pose a challenge to the other side of it. So any detection system that drives past a segregated barriered walkway, it's going to detect that person on the walkway. We've created something that what we can do is we can mask these areas. So what happens is our system then will not pick up. So these people walking along this barriered walkway here, they won't get detected by the system. So we kind of just blank that out. Now this does a couple of things. It means you'll only get the alerts when they're really needed. So it means that people really listen to them and they don't get the sort of false alerts. So it means that, you know what it's like if an alarm's always going off. I don't know if you get it in your car when it starts beeping when you're miles away from that obstruction behind you, you kind of turn off to it. And that's what we don't want to happen. We want to make sure that every time that alarm goes off, it's for a reason and people listen to it.
So behaviours and how to approach a vehicle. This was, again, different industries will have different methods of approaching a vehicle, how they should do it. This is from the construction. This was the A30 down in Cornwall. I think they actually shot this. This is the runway. This was done under control measures, and I am the idiot one that looked back, but it was done very, very controlled in a safe manner to highlight. So this is an example. If you've got anybody from construction on the webinar, you'll recognise that as a red zone. So that's what we work with in construction. So we have a bubble around the full slew radius of the machine. The yellow area is the area we're supposed to approach the vehicle from, which clearly in that first video I did not. And if we go to the right way, so first thing I do is I want thumbs up driver to say that he's acknowledged that I'm there, at which point he's put the machine in a safe state, i.e. he's engaged dead man's handle, so that machine cannot move. At that point I can approach the machine and have the conversation I need to have with the driver. So, and we're sure across different industries, waste and recycling do it slightly differently, but again, that physical acknowledgement from the driver actually raising his thumb, putting his thumb up, so that's a positive affirmation that you can go to that vehicle. Very, very simple. Just operate his thumb. It's as simple as that. Doesn't need to be any more complicated.
Just before we move on to the kind of case study and data side, is there any questions from anyone on anything so far?
Yeah, you did have one question, which if I just bring this up here from Mitch, was saying, have you guys had any incidents or in the past where people or plant have used site zone or had site zone deployed, but there'd still been an incident?
When the system's operational, no, it just works. So we don't, if the system's working as it should be, then yeah, we've had 0 incidents in that time. Again, this is what the case study goes through, I think, in a bit more detail here.
Yeah. Understood. So, yeah, there you go, Mitch. I hope that answered your question. Obviously, please do follow up. I think, as you said, Gary, it's if it's working and it's being followed, then you've got 100% success rate.
Yeah, and I think that's the key, and this is what Sam's going to discuss highlights with FCC. This is embedded in their DNA. And Sam will talk through that, and that's where you're going to get the best level of success out of any system, not just ours. You have to invest in it. If you're deploying a system just to tick a box, I would question why you're doing it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Mitch has just come on and just to say thank you. So
Thanks, Mitch.
Thank
you
you.
guys.
And feel free, anyone else who's got any questions, just put them in the chat. So now we're going to kind of finish up with just a bit of a case study, show you how we've worked with SCC on their sites. So for over 10 years, we've been working with SCC. We, as you saw in the timeline earlier, they were one of our first biggest customers, and the first in waste and recycling. So we've had a partnership, and it is very much a partnership, because as much as, you know, they have our product, they also give us feedback. We've developed a number of products with them, including the one we've launched this year, which Gary mentioned earlier, for the RCB bin lifts. 0 incidents, you know, that's where we want to get to. That's the number, you know, that 20 that I put up earlier of vehicle collisions. You know, we would love that number to be at 0, and that's what we've got to with FCC. We're on over 74 sites over the country, and across those sites we've got over 217 machines, and we go and inspect their machines twice a year, just to make sure everything's still working as it should be, and, you know, work with them on that. So they very, very, very look after their product on their machines. 2,800 plus tags. So everyone on site has a tag. They give tags to visiting drivers when they come on site as well. So everyone is covered on their site. And what we often do with them is we work with the manufacturer, and it becomes part of their tender spec. So when they're speccing up new machines for their site zone gets put in the spec. We install it, you know, CAT or whoever the supplier is, prior to it going on site. So it means they get their machine from day one working with site zone on it, and that is how they work. They cannot operate without it on their machines, and that's what makes it become part of their DNA and embedded into the way they work. Just a little quote here from Paul Stokes, who's the head of safety, health, environment and quality at FCC. One of the big things that Paul focuses on, we've done this with the newest product we launched, is this complacency that we talk about, and we're all guilty of it. I think, you know, you're doing a job day in, day out, and complacency can creep in. And what this product does is it reminds people, you know, they get too close to a machine, it reminds them that they're in that danger zone. And with FCC now, what we're moving to is this behavioural change. So they have the data, and what they do is they take a look at their data weekly, sooner if not, but weekly seems to be quite a good way that we work with customers on it. Make those positive interventions, look at what's going on site, and I'll run through our data platform after this. But on one of their sites, FCC Smallmead, over a 5-month period, they saw an 83% improvement in the unacknowledged, unauthorized zone breaches. I mean, that's massive, and to be able to show that as well, you know, is really great. So just before I go on to the data, is there any more questions come in, and then we'll run through the data?
I saw there was a couple of questions. 2 seconds. Sorry, as an individual wearing a tag, am I alerted by noise or vibration, or both? Can I adjust the volume of the alert on the tag?
It's vibration only. Basically, we don't do an alert. One of the reasons we don't do sound tag is by the very nature of doing sound. You would have to have a way of getting the sound out, if you like, so you potentially compromise the integrity of the tag itself. So that's why we use vibration. The vibration is actually very, very effective to noisy environments and things like that. You're always going to feel that vibration, and noise isn't going to get lost.
Yeah, so the tag vibrates, but we have an alarm on the vehicle, and that is something we can adjust. So that's got about 32 different settings on it.
Yeah,
so yeah.
By virtue of the tag might not vibrate, but you're going to be in a proximity where you'll be able to hear an alarm from a piece of kit anyway. And another question here: what is the uptime guaranteed? More than 95, more than 90%, more than 95%?
Oh, of the system operational. Yeah, I mean, look, it's like any electronic product we would expect. I'm not going to say it's 100%, but it certainly would be in the high 90s. Quite often, we do get operator errors and things like that. So the way we manage uptime is we have a triage system in the business that we use for all incoming calls and queries where they think they might have an issue. So it's not just about the physical uptime number, it's how do we get that uptime up as quickly as we can back to where it should be. But yeah, I mean, clearly things do go wrong, but I would suspect if you look at our field population today, 99% of systems out there are working as they should, and the will, clearly you do get downtime, but it's very, very low. And as part of that, what's important with that is we respond very quickly, because as somebody that's invested in a safety system, you want to make sure it's working.
And it uses, it's just on the other side of that, it uses radio frequency, which is it's highly accurate. So
yes.
Yeah. I think that's it for now. I'll hand back over to you guys.
Jonathan. Okay, so I'm just going to finish off with a little run through of our data platform and what you can learn from it and how it can be used. So we built it in Microsoft Power BI. Couple of reasons for this. A lot of our customers are already using this for their own internal data reporting, so it's a tool they're used to using. It comes with your Microsoft just as an extra on your normal Microsoft package, so you've got no extra logins. So it uses your same login as Outlook, and you can do some things like sharing it in Teams and that side of it. So it's a very intuitive system for what people are used to. What we can do is we can show you trends. So we've got acknowledged and unacknowledged. So what we can do with our system, I don't know if you remember when the video played, probably not, it was a little while ago now. There's a red button on the display that sits in the cab. So when somebody needs to approach the driver, talk to them, often that happens. Some places have radios, some do thumbs up. What the driver can do is they can press the acknowledge button to say, yep, I've known they're in the zone, they're coming to talk to me. What this will do is it will silence the alarm so that the pedestrian can have a conversation with the driver. But we also see it as an acknowledged breach. So that means it's okay. We know that was controlled and it was allowed to happen. What we want to look at is the unacknowledged breaches, the red ones. So what that means is someone stepped into the zone of the vehicle, shouldn't have been there, and they left again. So we can start looking at trends on this. We can start to see days of the week. Do you have a certain day of the week where you're getting more zone breaches? We can look at times of the day, and we can look at over your months. Are you hopefully seeing a downward trend? And the continuous work on it is where we've got to with customers where they are seeing that downward trend. This is quite an important one, breaches by tag. So every tag has a serial number, and what most of our sites do is keep a record of who they've given a tag. It's just like when you issue PPE, it becomes part of their PPE, you issue it and you record who's got the tag. Then you can look at the data and you can start to see what stands out. And I would say most times when I spend a lot of time talking and working with customers on their data to show them and help them interpret it. And you do always see one or two sitting out at the top where they can go and talk to them. It was one customer the other day I was with, one really stood out and they looked and they went, oh, that's the cleaner. So what they're doing is going around cleaning up around by the machine, but they're getting too close. So they knew straight away they could go and talk to that person, retrain, show them the risks. Involve staff. We found a lot of sites putting this up on their boards. They're showing the teams, rewarding good behaviour as well as bad behaviour. We've had some sites who are looking at putting in kind of a reward scheme for people that get zero breaches. Different ways you can look at it and different ways you can use it in your business. So then we can do breaches by site. So particularly for our large customers like FCC and others, you can look at your different sites and you can compare. You can see how each are doing. we can set permission levels. So you can have your site manager can only look at one site, but you know, your directors and health and safety who cover multiple sites, they can see everything in one place. And then we can look down to the machines. You know, do you have a machine that's constantly having too many alerts? Because it's sometimes working out, is it the pedestrian getting too close to the vehicle? Is it the vehicle not looking when they're reversing? You know, there's multiple factors going on here. So you can have a look at this data and really make a difference on site. And this is the bit we get quite excited about now, is really that long-term behavioural change, because that's where we'll really make a difference. And then finally, you can see a heat map. So you can see where you've got hotspots. You know, looking at this site, you know, access and egress from buildings is always an area where we'll get hotspots, because you've got, you know, concentrated traffic and people. But what we've had customers do is they've used this to say, right, do you know what? We've got a problem here. We need to put in a walkway, or we need to change our traffic plans. So you can really make some, you know, long-term site differences with the data.
Yeah, I think just to wrap up, clearly, you know, we've been doing what we do for a long time. There are other technologies out there, that, you know, some very good technologies out there. What I would say to you is, if you are someone that's considering looking at plant pedestrian interface systems, you do need to consider those things that I talked about up front: the environment, the visibility, all those sort of issues, before you make that decision and ask the right questions. Because again, this sort of thing, unfortunately, we've seen it time and time again, where people have ticked a box and it hasn't done what they wanted to do. And that's why we go through quite a diligent process with all of our clients, including site surveys, which we do at our own cost to make sure we are doing our job properly. So again, just make sure you're asking those questions and understanding what you're trying to achieve if you can deploy this sort of system. This is like any technology, you know, you just have to be careful to make sure it's going to do what you want it to do.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's
Any more questions, Jonathan, I guess?
Yeah, no, we've got a flurry of questions come through. Essentially, it's always quite nice to have questions aplenty, I suppose, on these things. So, I suppose one of the questions we've got here is what, well, I suppose it's split down actually, is at what stage of a site safety journey would you start looking at additional systems like RFID technology, radars, braking systems, all these kind of secondary control measures on an organisation, because it's not something that you can apply straight away from the off. It obviously has to have some basic level of kind of safety culture, or a positive safety culture in that sense. But where would you
I think,
pitch that for these types of systems?
I think you're absolutely right. Again, I go back to that box ticking, because unfortunately, people jump straight, oh, let's put the plant proximity system in, whatever the technology is, without doing the basics first. And we certainly discourage that. And we have in the past advised customers of that, to our detriment, that we don't think it's right for them to put a plant proximity system in. And again, it's those three basics, you know, it's that elimination, substitution, segregation. Once you feel you've got as far as you can with that, then it's time to start looking. I think you've got to do those basics. You've got to literally go through that basic process before you start looking at this. There will be cases where we know you can't segregate, as Sam said, and things like that. So again, that's the time, if you've got particular challenges on site and you've done everything you feel you can, but you're looking for that extra tier, because a lot of industries, there is still a requirement for people to be working close to the mobile plant, but certainly follow the basics first in that hierarchy of controls.
Brilliant. No, thanks, Gary. The next one is, how do you set the safety zones? Is this through electronic sensors?
So safety zones are set up at installation generally. We've had a conversation with client. We've been doing our site going through that process with them. Do they have a mandatory exclusion zone already? waste and recycling is quite easy because generally it's 5 meters. And if a site wants to come down from 5 meters, then that's a conversation they need to have. But again, it would depend on the application, the environment, and certainly that's something we can help with. It is set electronically on installation. It can only be changed by somebody with the correct equipment. It's to change a detection zone is a significant thing, so we control it. Could we do it remotely? Yes, we could, but we choose not to. We want it to be a conscious decision that somebody is going to change that zone from 5 meters to 3 meters, whatever it might be, and record that. And that's why our engineers, everything is done recorded digitally, which we provide to the client. So hopefully that answers that. But yeah, it depends on the application, and it has to be done effectively manually because we believe that's the safest way to do it.
And that control measure is quite important, and that's where, you know, like FCC, who we work with, if anyone on their sites wants to change a zone, it has to go through a process and be approved, and we have to get written approval for that to be done. So it, you know, it makes it that importance of that zone, and it makes people know, and it, you know, and I think that kind of having staff informed is really useful.
Thank you. Thanks, Sam. Thanks, Gary. Next one here is, what is the biggest lessons that you've learned from working with your customers?
It's a really good question. So if I probably staff engagement. If you want this to be a success, management, we all know this. I sit here as the managing director of business. We will make decisions that are the right decisions quite often. But if you don't engage with your staff, this is a serious issue. We've already looked at the numbers. The numbers last year are not going to be good, from what I've seen. You've got to engage with people because these are people we're trying to look after. These are the people we want to go home to their families at the end of the day. If you're going to put a system in, engage with them. That's one of the beauties of what we do, because you get a driver warning and a pedestrian warning. Everybody's involved in that process. You're not putting all that onus on the driver. Machine operators have got a lot going on in their cabs, so you need to keep it simple. But that staff engagement, I would say, that's where we get our biggest successes, and that's the biggest lesson we've had.
Yeah.
Engage with the people.
We've done a lot of work on that in the last couple of years, I would say, in our deployment, our training package, you know, our onboarding documents, all of that sort of thing. We've really worked hard on, because yeah, just to reiterate that, it is the most important thing, getting your staff engaged. That's how you'll get the true behavioural change, which is what we want to see.
Actually, ironically, you mentioned behavioural change there, Sam. The other question that I have here is, what has been the biggest behavioural change that you guys have seen with your customers, and how could members who are on this webinar now, how could they take some of those and easily replicate them in their own businesses?
You want to take that one?
I think a lot of it's awareness, and having, you know, I joined this business 2 years ago, and I didn't appreciate the risks of moving vehicles, particularly the, you know, the larger loading shovels, the yellow plants, so we like to call it. So I think that increasing awareness of people on site, and sometimes that has to be with hard hitting things like stats, videos. I worked with a customer who he'd seen a video of a loading shovel fatality, and that's what got him to contact us, because it hit him hard, you know. So sometimes we do have to do a bit of the hard hitting. So yeah, I think what you could take away for your own sites is just, you know, retraining, making people aware, and it's consistently doing that. You know, like I said, we do this at installation and launch when we deploy on a site, but it needs to be kept up. And what we've done, we've gone back into sites and we've done kind of like relaunches and retraining, because complacency creeps in. I'm going to use that again, and I'm going to take that from Paul Stokes, because he always talks about this, and it does creep in. So I think I think the one thing I would say to take away is to keep doing it.
Yeah.
You know, it is to keep doing it, not just train once. It's an annual thing, or it's every 6 months. That continual thing is how it sticks.
So Yeah, and just to take that, the biggest thing, obviously, Sam mentioned small meat there, which has been very successful, and they're still working on that because you don't get to 85% and stop. We want to keep doing that. Probably the biggest single statistical improvement was about 97.5%, I think, which was, I'm sure they won't mind me saying, it was Suez site. But again, the level of engagement to achieve that on that site was very high because they did a whole range of things. Once they had access to the data, they suddenly realised, as Sam highlighted in the heat map, access and egress points were an issue. They had 7 into the tipping hall on that particular site. So they reduced that to 1. And again, that's from the data. Very high level of engagement with the staff on that one, segregated walkways. So they invested in it. Once they had the data, they invested in improving that site safety through engagement with people. So it wasn't just pure behavioural change, but the data allowed them to get from, I think it was something like 2,000 alerts in the first month down to 50 within 2 months. So that is a massive change in your risk profile. And we're talking about plant to pedestrian. What we're even seeing, what's really interesting on the RCV side, I know we haven't talked about our RCV smart loader. Again, we're consistently seeing 90% improvements, but that is a system that enforces you have to behave correctly to be able to do your job. So yeah, we constantly get sort of high 80s, high 90s, but as Sam said, consistency. You need to keep going with this. It doesn't stop when you put a product in, whatever it may be. You just got to keep going. So yeah, we have and we do get improvements in high 80s and 90s.
It's really good. Really good. Well, I think for me, I mean, we spoke about this before in the past, is where you're looking at, errors, be it lapses in concentration, doing the process of the task in the wrong order, or anything else like that, that using systems or other means to enforce that rigid way of following that process. And you use the bin lifter example there of it forces you to be at the position where you need to be to engage the machinery in the right way, to then keep people away from the danger zone. That on the back of a bin truck, that's
it's a cliche,
I suppose
but
a good way of looking at it.
yeah, and you're right, Jonathan. But it's a cliche, but it's a journey. You need to keep going. You don't stop once you've bought some tech to. So you need to keep going with it, and that's where the data is valuable because it allows you to carry on that journey with your staff.
Mm. Yes, so it gives you some tangible examples. Yeah, brilliant. I think we've got one last question, I believe. If there's anybody else who wants to get any last minute questions in before we hand over to Tony to wrap up. But the questions here, and it's come in 2 parts. What differentiates you from your competitors, and some context below is such as the emergence of AI and AI systems and other technologies that are available.
So AI is a very interesting one. So I don't know how many people on here have looked at AI and what AI means. So AI cameras, the first question you have to ask yourself is, are they really AI? Okay, because AI, the true sense of AI is it's self-learning. So these cameras are actually human form detection cameras. I would argue they're not AI because they don't have the capability to learn. There's a database of human forms in there. And actually, I get this from the company called Blackstare, who, in my opinion, make the best human form detection system in the market. They're a French company, deployed worldwide, very good company. I've enjoyed working with them in the past. And they will tell you they've got a database of 60, 70,000 human shapes in there, and theirs is the biggest. We all know we're all different. So I would say, I'm going to be a little bit controversial now, so forgive me. We know that SiteZone works out the box. Why do you want to buy a system that has to learn to do its job in the first place? Because that's what AI is. AI is about learning. We're talking about people's safety here. It should work. I'm not saying they don't work, but if there is an element that actually it picks up a heap of rubbish on a site, and that's a false alarm because it doesn't recognise it. It thinks it's a person, but it doesn't know. So I think, you know, that I've just got a bit of a bee in my bonnet about AI because I think it's taken out of context what AI is, and there's a lot of misnomers about AI market. Human form detection cameras are very good in certain applications. Our product is very good in certain applications. You know, what defines what you will buy, you've got to look at the whole picture. What is it going to do the job I need it to? What is the service and backup? And what is the engagement? We are a business that do not want to work with companies that just want to tick a box, and we don't just want to tick the box either. So that, I would say, is the main difference between us. You will choose the technology based on how well it's been sold to you, and what you want. But I would just say, whatever you go for, if you are looking, make sure the product really does what you want it to do. Because these things aren't cheap. It's a major investment for any site. You know, even a small site with 2 or 3 machines on it, that's still a very significant investment for anybody. So, you know, I think the big thing for us is data and how we're engaging with that data. And we've been around a long time doing this reliably for a long time. AI cameras, human form detection cameras, they're going to get better. It's still a relatively new journey for them. Some of it is very impressive. I'm not going to die and say that. I've mentioned Blackstone there. Their product is very good in certain applications. So yeah, that's apologies if I got on my high horse about AI, but it's because it's taken out of context a lot these days. It's a buzzword that's used inappropriately sometimes.
I think the other thing to add to that is if we are looking at the long-term behavioural change, the AI cameras don't give you that unique identifier of who, so you can't easily analyse who's getting too close to machinery. So that's a really big thing, and it's also then again it's back on the operator. So you know the operator gets the alert, the pedestrian they get an alarm, but they don't get that individual alert. So they're the couple of things that when we talk to customers, that's one of the things they really, you know, if you're looking for the long-term behavioural change, then having a tag-based system gives you that because you can identify the people.
And just on the AI side of that, when they are using visual and facial recognition, obviously there are other considerations such as GDPR and privacy and things like that, whereas we use a 6-digit tag number to identify the tag. How the person is identified is generally done locally by site, so we don't compromise any of those issues. Where's your data being held and all that important stuff, which is becoming more and more relevant these days.
Brilliant. Well, I think there's a good takeaway there that if you're looking at the systems and they claim to be AI, is it true AI? I didn't realise there was 2 different types, so I've definitely come away from today learning something.
I think there's 4 layers
with
of AI, Jonathan, actually. If you look it up, there's 4 different, the top one being self-aware, which is where we go all Terminator and the world ends, I think, in general. But there's 3 levels below that if you look at actually what AI is.
Okay. Oh,
Bedtime
thanks,
reading.
Gary. A bit of bedtime reading. Last message I've seen come up here popped up from Chris Beddoes. Chris Beddoes here. I can confirm that positive high levels of employee engagement and felt leadership stroke management is fundamental in the success of the system or systems such as this. I can personally attest to the effectiveness of the system. So I think you've got a glowing recommendation from Chris. That is all for the questions. I'm sure you are happy to share your details, or we can get your details shared, Gary and Sam, if anyone wanted to ask any other questions or follow up with anything. There from me, just a thanks again, and I will now pass over to our branch chair, Tony, for a bit of a closing address and some final thoughts. Over to you, Tony.
Thanks very
much. Thanks very much to you, Jonathan. And like you said, I would just like to thank Gary and Sam for taking the time out to present this webinar this afternoon to the East Anglian Branch Committee. It is very much appreciated. Just a couple of updates regarding IIRSM. The Risk Excellence Awards for 2024 are currently in the process, or the final stages of the process of being judged. And I can also confirm that the awards dinner will take place on the 23rd of May, 2024 at Church House in Westminster, London. And I did attend myself last year, and it is a particularly good opportunity to meet risk-minded professionals. Just a little bit of update from East Anglia. Our next branch event, or our next webinar, will take place on the 11th of April, commencing at 1600. And once again, we are welcoming back Paul Robinson of Robinson Management Services Limited, who last year presented for us a Star Wars related theme. But this year will be talking to us on all matters in relation to environmental risk and ISO management standards. So that's definitely one for your diary for the 11th of April. But once again, my sincere thanks to Gary and Sam. I hope everybody's enjoyed the webinar this afternoon. Thank you, Jonathan and Julie, for your efforts in organising today's event. And I look forward to welcoming everyone again on the 11th of April at 4 p.m. Thank you very much to you all, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Goodbye, everyone.